ASMRGaming News. Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to a new ASMR Movie Geek review. So, I just got back from the movie theater. I watched the new Uncharted movie. For those that don't know, Uncharted is a series of games on the PlayStation. I've played most of them, and this was an awesome movie, let me tell you. So we're going to be doing a review. I have some chips right here. I have some Lay's sour cream and onion chips right here that I'm going to be munching on while I do this review. And yeah, don't worry about spoilers if you haven't seen the movie yet. There's going to be a spoiler-free section here at the beginning. And then I'm going to do a spoiler warning about halfway through, where I'm going to talk about, story stuff. So, let's just jump right in. But first, I'm a little bit thirsty because I ate a bunch of popcorn at the theater. But I'm still hungry because I didn't eat lunch. Okay, so basically, this movie was really good. Like, first impression, go watch it if you like adventure movies. Like, I went in not expecting much, and I came out pleasantly, like, surprised. Like, hey, that was a good movie. I would definitely watch it again. I would recommend people go watch it, and I had a really fun and enjoyable time with this movie. Like, it feels like we haven't gotten a movie like this in a while, and I'll explain that a little bit later, but this felt like a pure action adventure movie in the style of, like, Indiana Jones or National Treasure, if any of you watch that Nicolas Cage movie where he has to steal the Declaration of Independence, and that's a great movie. This movie, when I was watching it, it was giving me those vibes, like National Treasure, Indiana Jones, maybe the recent, like, Tomb Raider movie that came out. Just, like, fun adventure vibes, and I really enjoyed it. So that's kind of something that I've noticed recently. We usually get, like, a lot of superhero movies. We get action movies like John Wick. We don't really get, like, adventure, treasure map adventure style movies that much anymore. We get a lot of sci-fi though, which I love, but I don't know, I definitely felt the lack of this kind of movie, so maybe that's why, but I really liked it. I think everything about this movie was pretty good. Now, it's not a 10 out of 10 or anything crazy, It's not gonna win Movie of the Year or, anything like that. Like, I'm not gonna rank this in my top 10 favorite movies of all time, but it was a good movie. Honestly, I'm surprised they released this movie right now in, like, February. This feels like the perfect summertime movie. Kind of like how Pirates of the Caribbean, pirate movie usually comes out in summer. I feel like this movie should have came out in, like, June or July. Just feels like one of those movies, summer blockbuster. So I'm surprised they didn't release it then. But, let me eat one of these chips over here. One crunchy chip. That was a big chip too, by the way. Okay, so let's just jump right in. The actors, the main character, Nathan Drake, is played by Tom Holland. So Tom Holland, yet again, landing an amazing role, playing Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series. Very popular video game character on PlayStation. And Tom Holland's a great actor. He's also Spider-Man, as I'm sure many of you also know that. But when I went into this movie, I was like, oh, is Tom Holland gonna act like he does in Spider-Man? But no, he doesn't do the Peter Parker style of acting in this. He's completely different. And I feel like Tom Holland tried to mimic the mannerisms of like a young Nathan Drake from the Uncharted games so much that when he's like picking up objects or like looking at them, I'm like, yo, this almost feels like how Nathan Drake in the video game cutscenes on PlayStation does it. Like, there was something special there, so I definitely noticed that as someone that played the Uncharted games. Like, the way he's moving, he's looking, everything feels like, I don't know, I feel like they gave him like the PlayStation games, like, hey, Tom Holland, take a week off, or take a month off, here's the Uncharted collection, play through the games. And he did that because, I don't know, he feels like he's really trying to act like Nathan Drake in this, and he does a really good job. Now, he is like a younger version of Nathan Drake. That's not a spoiler or anything like that, so this movie does not take place in any of the Uncharted games, so don't worry about playing any of the Uncharted games. Like, you don't have to play Uncharted 1 or Uncharted 4 to enjoy this movie. Like, you can just jump right in. Just go in expecting, a fun adventure, like treasure hunting type movie, similar, to, similar, what another movie that I would compare it to, The Goonies, only in certain scenes, but The Goonies, Indiana Jones, National Treasure, gave me those vibes when I was watching this movie, so I liked it for that. Next we have, Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark, Mark Wahlberg playing, Sully from the Uncharted series, and Sully in this movie is also a younger version of himself, so he does not have the iconic mustache, which was a little bit surprising. I was like, wait, is this Sully? But there's certain things that they get, like Mark Wahlberg's character Sully, to do in this movie, and you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely like a Sully thing, I can see that. So I liked it. Like, I feel like they got the characters right. Definitely someone from Sony was talking with the team like, oh, you gotta do this, you have to have the characters doing that. Nathan Drake wouldn't do that, Sully wouldn't do that, so pretty good. Now, I do say that if you've played Uncharted 1, 2, or 4, you're probably going to enjoy this movie a little bit more. Because even though there's not, like, spoilers for those games or anything, there's certain things that'll make you appreciate this movie more if you've played at least one of those Uncharted games, I feel. So, definitely, try to play at least one of those games if you have a PlayStation. The Uncharted series is on PlayStation 3, 4, and PlayStation 5. And I think they released it on Steam or PC on the Epic Games Store now. I have to check. But yeah, Uncharted games are like on everything now, so except for Xbox and Nintendo, of course. Next, the main villain, not gonna get too much into that, but is played by Antonio Banderas, who does a great job, by the way. Like, he's amazing. He's a great actor, and there's, certain background characters that pop in later on in the movie. I can't really get too much into that because it is spoilers, but just know, like in most Uncharted games, there are, other companion characters to the heroes and other villain characters that make appearances, so that's really nice. The movie, wow, I absolutely love the music in the movie. Like, this movie had, like, I would say an adventure feel with the music. It felt like you were on an adventure, like something special, which is why I kind of give it like similarities to Indiana Jones or National Treasure. If you've watched those movies, there's music in those that are like iconic at this point, like the main theme for the National Treasure movie or Indiana Jones, and I feel like they remixed Uncharted music and put it in this movie. That's not a spoiler because it's Uncharted, so you will hear the iconic like Uncharted music, kind of like the main theme, Drake's main theme. I think it's what it's called. But you also get to hear like really nice upbeat orchestral pieces and things like that during like action sequences or when they're discovering something special. And not only does it feel like the games, but it also feels like a really important kind of like treasure hunting adventure movie, just like Indiana Jones and National Treasure. So I really like that. The cinematography, beautiful. Definitely makes you feel like you're exploring new areas and secret locations. I really think they did a great job with capturing like nice landscapes and things like that in this movie. They also did some really unique things with the film shots, like the camera angles, especially during the action sequences. Something that I haven't seen in a while, like the action sequences in this movie kind of do like a panoramic view thing that I would say is something kind of similar to maybe how Michael Bay does his fights a little bit, where like he'll show the characters fighting and then show like a 360 view sometimes. This movie does that a few times, like there'll be big fights or big action sequences and you'll be up close and then all of a sudden it'll show like a bird's eye view from above or from the side of what's going on. Really gets you into the action, so I like that. And that's something else that I noticed, like there were a lot of up close shots where you're like, oh no, what's happening? Kind of to increase tension. Like they'll only show you a very small, like cramped space, and then immediately they'll like zoom out and show you like a huge thing that's going on. So I really like that. So I feel like the director for this movie did a great job. And yeah, I really like the music, the way this was filmed. Now I do have some minor nitpicks. Of course I do, with a few things in the movie. Like I'll get into it in spoilers, but there were a few moments in this movie where you're kind of pulled out of the adventure because you're like, wait a second, in real life or in an Uncharted game, like if this was an actual Uncharted game, this would have ended differently. Like every player would have done that or something like that, So it kind of takes you out of the movie a few times where maybe the heroes do something a little bit dumb or something happens and you're kind of like, I would have done that differently, or no one would have done that. So there's a few moments which kind of make you go like, nah, no way. But other than that, they did a pretty good job of trying to keep it, like, I would say on the level of believability with the game. Like there's not many moments where you're like, oh, Nathan Drake would never do this, or like Sully would never do that, or this is not an Uncharted movie. So I feel like video game movies are usually really good, really bad, or somewhere in the middle, and I would say this one is definitely towards the middle, very good section, I think they did a great job with that. So I do recommend going to see this movie. I'm gonna eat another chip, I keep forgetting. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other non-spoiler things I can talk about. It's a little bit hard not to talk about spoilers. Oh, the costumes, the outfits, oh my goodness. So I was like watching the movie at the beginning, I was like, how are they gonna get Tom Holland to look like Nathan Drake? Like, okay, I don't really see it here. And then they do it, and I'm like, oh, he looks like a young Nathan Drake. And he really does. So I like that a lot. Same with Sully, like Mark Wahlberg. Not gonna get into spoilers, but definitely looks like him as well. And this movie does something really, really awesome, where it does a thing where, there's some movies that start with like a bang, and then they kind of get very like boring, and it just keeps going like downhill the whole movie. And then there's movies like this one where it kind of starts with a bang. It progressively then gets better and better and better and better. Like, I would say the last 30 minutes of this movie is a million times better than the first 30 minutes of this movie. So, not gonna get into spoilers or anything like that, but the last 30 minutes of this movie, I would give like a 10 out of 10 of just how much I was enjoying myself in the theater. Like, it was really good. I had a great time, and I haven't really seen a movie do some stuff that this movie did. I know that sounds weird, but this movie did some things that I was like, how come no other movies have done kind of like action sequences like that? Or why hasn't, other directors done something similar with how they've filmed an action sequence? Like, this felt special, just like a video game. That's what I wanted to say, like a video game. Like, you know how in the Uncharted games, there's gonna be like crazy things happening. There's always like some crazy sequence, at least one or two. Well, I'm gonna say this movie has at least like 2, if not 3 of those type of scenes. And like, they're very, very good. And they're like a video game. They're exactly like a video game. Like, and that's what makes it awesome, I think, because too many movies try to stay super realistic, and this movie just does its own thing and like does not care. Very similar to how like the Fast and Furious movies or like the Avengers movies are just like, nah, we're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna make it like a comic book or like an action video game and just completely go crazy with it. That's what this movie does. So I really like that. So yeah, I think I'm done with like the spoiler-free section. I think the actors did a great job. Music was great. The special effects were awesome. Props to all of the stunt people that worked on this movie. They must have been doing some insane, like, I have no idea what kind of setups or things they were running, but they did a great job. Everything looked really, really good. I'm surprised this movie was delayed and had like some problems filming for so many years, because the final product I think is actually pretty good. So I enjoyed it. I will probably watch this movie again this year, and I am recommending it. So yeah, I think we can move on to the spoiler section. Spoiler, 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 spoiler. So, basically, this movie is like a prequel to Uncharted 1. It's a young Nathan Drake before Uncharted 1. So, just go in expecting that. We get references to Nathan Drake's brother, which if you played Uncharted 4, you know exactly what's going on with, you know exactly what's going on with that, so that's awesome. We get to see some flashbacks and things with, like, Nathan Drake and his brother and them at the orphanage. Very similar to Uncharted 4, Uncharted 3. If you've played those games, you know what I'm talking about. Those games have like flashbacks, so I really like that. Let's see. What else? The movie kind of starts out, Nathan Drake, he's just a thief. Sully is also a thief, but a better thief. He needs his help to find a secret treasure, and that's the main plot of this movie. Finding a treasure, going on a treasure hunt or an adventure. This movie plays kind of like a video game at times with how they do the chapters with it. Like, there'll be the art level, the art exhibit level. Then there'll be the underground level. Then there's gonna be like the airplane fight level. Very similar to how the Uncharted games work. So it's structured like a video game. So I liked that. They did a great job with that in this movie. The main villain is Antonio Banderas, who plays like this rich guy whose family has had like a long, powerful history in Spain. Apparently, it's revealed that they were the people that funded Magellan's trip around the world. Magellan or his crew hid somewhere, and they were never able to recover it. The only thing they know is that there's these two golden crosses that are the keys to open up the secret treasure. So they steal one of these from like an art exhibit, and there's a huge fight, and it's awesome. I absolutely loved it. Kind of reminds me of like classic Indiana Jones. Like, I would say it reminds me of like the beginning of Indiana Jones 2, you know? We're at the nightclub and stuff goes down. Very similar vibe. Kind of like that. That's why I also gave references to like National Treasure, because that's another like treasure hunt type movie. Another villain character is revealed. She's great. I forget the actress's name, but she plays this character Braddock in this movie. She's awesome. Looks scary. Really cool. She later, like halfway through the movie where you think Antonio Banderas is the main villain, she just straight up kills him, and you're like, whoa, I guess she's gonna be the main villain now. So it kind of does that plot twist, very similar to the Uncharted games where the main bad guy ends up not being the main bad guy, so kind of like that. Chloe from Uncharted 2 makes an appearance in this game. So she's in this, you know, she's playing a very sneaky type of character, always lying, always trying to get to the treasure first, pretending to be with Sully and Nathan Drake in this movie, and double-crossing them every chance she gets. So it's kind of a really fun dynamic, though. You kind of see it coming, and then there's a really nice scene where like Nathan Drake at the end has like a 200 IQ moment and kind of tricks her. So that's a great scene. Let me think. Yeah, so basically there's a secret treasure hidden somewhere. They end up going to Spain. By the way, this movie pays tribute to Indiana Jones. Like flight. I don't know what you call it. Like, you know when Indiana Jones is traveling in the movies from a location to another location. They do that in the Uncharted games too, where there's like a red line and an airplane like flying across the globe to a new country. This movie does like a really beautiful like 3D version of that, with like a 3D airplane flying across the world, and you see it like landing in a new spot. I really like that. Reminded me of Indiana Jones and of the Uncharted games when they do something similar, so I like that. But yeah, Sully, Nathan Drake, they managed to steal one of these golden crosses. They go to Spain, they meet Chloe, she's got another one of these crosses. They go through a series of like secret tunnels under the Barcelona like tunnel system or something like that. It's ancient like tunnel system that's been there for a long time. They find like some Roman vases with salt in them. Inside one of these, they manage to find like a secret map, and then they discover that the treasure isn't even in Spain. So Chloe like double crosses Nathan Drake and escapes and decides to work for the bad guys. Sully catches up with Nathan Drake, and they decide to go to the Philippines where this treasure actually is. And then there's like a huge final like showdown that happens in the Philippines. Nathan Drake discovers where the map is. The one thing I would say about this movie is I feel like they should have had a few more puzzles. In the Nathan Drake games, you got a bunch of puzzles, especially some pretty hard ones. In this movie, it's a little bit different than the Uncharted games because I feel like everybody's really smart. Like, there'll be a problem, and then they solve it in like 1 minute. So it's very fast, everything gets solved pretty quickly. That's like one thing I would say I hope they make a little better in the sequel, because there is a sequel. I'll get more onto that later, but yeah. I feel like they should have made a little bit more attention with like the solving of some of these puzzles, because I feel like everybody was a genius and knew the answers too quickly. But basically they discover where this cave is. Nathan Nathan Drake tricks Chloe in the Philippines to go somewhere else. Antonio Banderas ends up dying. Oh, I'm skipping. I can't believe I'm skipping one of the best parts of this movie. Oh my goodness, how could I forget? Okay. So they do this insane kind of like sky airplane action sequence where Nathan Drake, Sully, Chloe, the main villain Braddock, and Antonio Banderas are on this like airplane. Basically what happens is this main villain character Braddock, she kills the Antonio Banderas villain character, and then she goes after Chloe, Nathan Drake, and Sully on this airplane because they were hiding. Then Nathan Drake confronts this main Braddock villain, asking if she killed his brother, you know, because Nathan Drake's brother's missing. That's why he kind of went on this journey. And yeah, there's this huge fight sequence, and everything on this airplane just gets like blown outside of the airplane through the back. So all the luggage, everything's just flying off this airplane, and it's connected to like a very, very like thin linked cable to the main hull inside this airplane. And Nathan Drake's like jumping on these things, and bad guys are fighting. It was a great action sequence. Absolutely loved it. Not only did it feel like the video games, but it reminded me of like kind of the fun action sequences you would find in Indiana Jones movies, so I like that a lot. Basically it ends with everybody free-falling, Nathan Drake surviving with Chloe. Sully shows up a little bit later, but really good scene. Later on, Sully, Nathan Drake catch up. They discover the secret cave where this treasure is hidden, and basically Nathan Drake is super smart in this movie because he figures everything out on his own. How to use the keys, how to pinpoint the correct location, where the cave is, where the ship and gold is hidden. They go inside this cave, and Nathan Drake sees it first, and it's like a huge, huge cave with these two big ships completely intact for hundreds of years. Nothing's happened to them in this cave, and they're just completely full of like gold hidden in barrels and things like that. So that's what really reminded me of the Goonies. If any of you watch the Goonies, it's a fantastic treasure adventure movie with a bunch of kids. It came out in the 80s. It's really good. And that movie, towards the end, has a scene where they all discover this old ship full of gold and precious jewels and diamonds, and that's exactly what kind of happened in this Uncharted movie, so I really like that. And, you know, they're exploring, they're looking at all this gold. Sully's like so happy, he's filling his bag to the brim with all this like jewelry and stuff he's finding. And then the bad guys show up, and they have to hide from them inside like barrels deep under the ship. And then out of nowhere, they discover that the bad guys, main villain and her henchmen, are basically going to pull these ships out of this whole like hidden tunnel area into the sky with helicopters and fly them away. So then there's like the whole like final battle sequence where Nathan Drake, Sully beating up bad guys on top of this old ship, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean style. Really awesome because they're fighting on like something really old. They're even using old like pirate weapons and things like that, like swords and stuff. It's awesome. I loved that scene. They managed to free one of the boats. Sully climbs up and gets in one of the helicopters and starts controlling where the ship's going. The other ship and helicopter, though, is controlled by the main villain. Nathan Drake shoots the villain's helicopter with like wait, what's he? No, oh yeah, he shoots it with like a cannonball directly from their ship. So it's hilarious, like using old weaponry to take down modern, you know, equipment and stuff like that. It's great. And the main villain girl, Braddock, she jumps right when her ship and all her henchmen like die and explode. She manages to jump onto Nathan Drake's ship, and there's like a final battle where he has to fight her, and Sully has to make the decision whether he wants to save Nathan Drake or save his treasure. And of course, Sully, being a really nice guy, he throws his treasure to hit Braddock in the face, causing her to fall hundreds of feet down into the ocean and get crushed by the ship in the process. And he saves Nathan Drake, and they go off into the sunset in, their helicopter. They can't go back for the treasure because the ship's destroyed, everything's sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and we see the Philippine, Coast Guard coming to the water there, so they're not even gonna let anyone get near that site, because, they're probably like, hey, who's trying to steal ancient artifacts from our country? So, yeah, it's a no-go zone after that. So, the movie ends kind of leading up to the sequel. It's really, really nice. I feel like the chemistry between Sully and Nathan Drake during this movie just grows. So you actually really like both of them a lot more towards the end than you do at the beginning. And then the movie ends basically setting up the story for Uncharted 1, kind of. So I really hope they do another movie, and we finally get to see Sully with a mustache, his iconic mustache, at the end of the movie, which is really funny, seeing Mark Wahlberg with the mustache, but he actually has one. So, for an Uncharted fan, for someone that likes video game movies, I feel like you have to go watch this, and I really enjoyed my time, so yeah, definitely go see this if you can. And yeah, that's my review. I think I would give it a 7 or an 8 out of 10. I can't give it a perfect score. The movie does a few dumb things a little bit, during some of the older fights with the main villain. They have a chance to kill the main villain, and they just leave them alone. And it's kind of okay, because in the Uncharted games, Nathan Drake just is straight up shooting everybody. If you ever played an Uncharted game, you know what I mean. So I don't know, there were a few things in this where I was like, why are they letting the villains go away right now, or why aren't they doing that? Also, there was 2 scenes where it just went a little bit too crazy for the believability for me. I don't know, there's a part where you discover that the ships were in the cave, and the cave was completely exposed at the top to all the elements for hundreds of years. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if a ship is exposed to rain and the elements for hundreds of years, there's basically not going to be any ship left. So the fact that they were in such good condition for a long time being exposed out in the open like that was a little bit weird, but it's a video game movie, so I let that stuff slide. But really good. I was impressed. I had a great time. And there was also a little cameo in this movie. I feel like it's wrong to spoil it completely, but if you like the Uncharted games and you know them well, there's going to be a nice little cameo about halfway through the movie when Nathan Drake gets on the beach after crash landing in the ocean with Chloe. There's a nice scene where there's a little reference on the beach for the Uncharted fans, so that's something nice that I picked out. But yeah, I can't wait for the next one. I really like, adventure, action type movies like this. We don't get a lot of them, so I think this is one of the better ones. So yeah, thank you all for listening, for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time. So long.